In this month's episode, we talk about how conventions can improve their late-night programming schedules. Shiva and Sketch tell us about Japanese events that aren't conventions. And we discuss the finer points of handling a cosplay group. That's all coming up on AnimeCons TV.
One of the things that's coming up more and more as conventions expand and stuff is how to have good late night programming for all groups that are attending the convention.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of conventions where they'll either have one of two things. They'll have 18 plus programming just blocked off the entire evening, or it ends early and there's nothing. And in either case, it leaves some of the attendees with nothing to do.
And there's a couple ways around it. One of the ways that people can kind of still cater to people that still want to do things late at night is determine whether or not a panel really needs to be 18 plus. An example would be convention horror stories or whatever type of panel people try and label that as. Because really, you might be talking about crazy things that happen, but you're not really showing adult material. It's just kind of stuff for a more mature audience, kind of the crowd that's been going to conventions for a while.
Yeah, and you might be a fan of hentai, but not everybody is, so maybe late at night show some comedy anime instead of hentai, or just some other alternative programming that under 18 can go to, and provide more options. People who aren't into the dance, maybe.
And I mean, I think you shouldn't remove the dance. I mean, the dance is a great way for some of the younger people that have a lot of energy to get that energy out and kind of wear themselves out, get a little tired, get ready for bed. Which kind of leads into one of the other things, which is, I don't think every convention should be 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
It's...
some of the smaller conventions especially, it's not worth it to have 24-hour programming if you're only going to have two people in a panel at 3 in the morning.
Yeah, it puts a strain on the staff, and honestly, if you have a definite end time for your programming, it encourages people to go to bed and get some sleep.
And also you can clear people out of the hallways because there's nothing going on, and that makes people go home. Also, for a convention that's in a hotel and you have a room block you have to fill, it helps guarantee that people will book rooms and not just plan to spend it all in a video room.
And there are still even more further ideas. I mean, one of the things I've seen some conventions try to do is have more social events, kind of meet and greet, where, you know, a cosplay pajama party or open card games or D&D, things that just get people out and hanging out. And it's a much more casual atmosphere, so you're not under the strain of specific programming, but still encourages people to have fun and meet other people.
Yeah, sort of gatherings. You know, it doesn't have to be 21 plus. You don't have to have a lounge, and you don't have to have dance with music. You know, just a place for, hey, let's all meet up and talk about stuff. Because conventions will have their hentai and their 18 plus panels and their adult version of earlier panels, but not all adults want hentai and want adult programming. I am a lot older than the average AnimeCon attendee, and I'd like to go and see, you know, just some mature topics like we talked about a couple months ago.
So definitely, I think if you're a convention organizer, look at the demographic of your group and look at what events you can do that will appeal to other people. Some panelists might be reluctant to create an event that's going to be running later at night because they're worried that they won't get the audience. So definitely pay attention to what sort of things. I mean, you wouldn't want Cosplay 101 at 11 o'clock at night. You're not going to get the people there. Yeah. But say...
Likewise, a convention horror stories probably isn't that great at 10 in the morning.
I mean, there's been so many great ones that are later at night. I remember the story, The Fans Scare Me, which was just story hour with some people that have been in the industry a while and gone to a lot of conventions. It was the perfect atmosphere for late at night.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, not everybody wants to be up partying late at night. Some people, they've had a busy day. They just want to, sit back at a fun panel and enjoy it.
So experiment. Let us know what type of late night programming you'd like to see.
Yeah, call us, leave a voicemail, and tell us your favorites.
Something a lot of people are interested in who are into the whole convention scene is ways they can kind of experience Japanese culture or do kind of more with their kind of fandom of the culture that isn't necessarily just going to a convention. And so far this year, we've actually been able to attend a few events that kind of tie into convention culture but are outside of the whole AnimeCon world. One of those is this spring. We had a Japanese Spring Festival in Boston. We had Matsuri.
Matsuri, yeah.
And this is something that happens every year in Washington, D.C. They have the most famous one in the U.S., and it's the Cherry Blossom Festival. And it started when Japan gave a gift of the cherry trees to the capital.
And this year happened to be the 100th anniversary of that. And so in doing so, they decided to have a Matsuri Day in every major city. And we caught the local one. And it was very interesting because they had a whole day of programming. I had a center stage where they showed how a kimono is put on properly and different outfits and different music styles and different dance styles, and went from there. And they also had the booths.
Right, so they had booths set up that would have food. They were doing things for Japan Relief. This was all run by the Boston Japanese Society. So it was actually run by the Japanese community rather than fans, quote unquote, of the community. So you really felt you were experiencing their culture as done by them. A lot of people who participated were either of Japanese descent or from Japan directly. We got to watch some taiko drumming. That was one of the interesting things. And they actually had a group of students from Japan who were in Boston studying English who did some traditional dancing, and they were really awesome. They also gave away round trip airfare to Japan for the new airline that's coming through to Logan Airport. So that was really cool. It was kind of nice to interact with people who aren't necessarily anime fans, but are fans of Japanese culture. There were a lot of children there. There were a lot of older people there who were had experience in the community, and that was very interesting.
But it was interesting, like, they really were like, here's our culture. Absorb yourself. You would see at the beginning just, people who are families, obviously Japanese descent, came and they were dressed up in their typical springtime kimonos, and then eventually you start noticing other people who clearly didn't have a descension from Japan, and
but they were still dressed appropriately for the event.
Appropriately, so it really was an amalgamy at that point of everyone enjoying, everything Japanese that's not anime.
It was a good opportunity to learn from the people who actually are part of the culture. Another event that we went to earlier this year was they actually had the Distant Worlds Final Fantasy concert.
And finally came to Boston.
It finally came to Boston after it's been touring since 2007, and this is the first time it's ever come to Boston, which is interesting because it's the 25th anniversary of the Final Fantasy series, which granted is directly related to gaming and anime culture, but the event itself was very formal. It was at Symphony Hall and done by the Video Game Orchestra and conducted by a world-renowned Grammy Award-winning conductor, and had some of the composers. Arnie Roth actually is the name. And had one of the composers from Japan in attendance, which was really interesting. And it was a lot about the music. It was less about kind of the fandom and a lot about the actual music, and that was really nice to kind of join in with fans, but celebrating maybe the games in a different way.
Yeah, I mean, if you take an 8-bit, 16-bit soundtrack, and then you actually make a full orchestrated composition. And they also were able, because it was in the Boston Symphony, they were able to use the famous pipe organ.
Right, so they actually got to play Dancing Mad from Final Fantasy VI the way it's supposed to be, which made everyone very excited.
There's someone jumping over there, and I'm very giddy about that right now.
Well, it actually was a rare event for the tour itself, because since they are a traveling concert, they don't always have the facility with a full pipe organ to perform that. that piece. So we were actually kind of lucky. It was a treat that we happened to have the facility to experience that, which was really special. So it's kind of one of those things where if you do some digging, you can find out about events that are going in maybe in your hometown or a city near you. If you live near a major city, things like concerts, things like culture festivals, things like they have food events sometimes that would just be specifically celebrating food culture. And it's kind of ways to not only find something to do to, experience culture between conventions, but also if you want a whole nother side to it, something that's not completely run by fans of just a very small part of Japanese culture, which is anime, but kind of to the whole culture and history as a whole.
And if you happen to find one, go ahead, go on our forums and tell everybody about it.
We'd like to know.
Great way for advertising for them, and also to, bring the option to more diverse people. So remember, go to animecons.com.
If you haven't figured it out by now, Shiva and I like to cosplay. And we also like to cosplay with other people. And when you're getting ready for a convention that's several months down the road and you want to have an epic group together, you have to prepare for it.
Yeah, and there's several different ways to do that. One of the things that we have found is very helpful is to use some kind of social media to organize the groups. You can stay in touch with all your members and get organized. Facebook's a good option, or LiveJournal used to work.
You still use
more
it.
Back in the day. Not too many people do anymore, but there's a lot of other options as well.
Yeah, what's great about Facebook is it's a good way to send a message to everybody, post pictures with reference pictures, post links with places you can buy things. So it's a good hub where you can post all the information needed.
Yeah, and you can keep a cast list, you can organize a time, so everyone knows what their schedule is and what's expected of them ahead of time.
Now when you have a group together and the costumes are pretty similar, you want things to be cohesive. You want things to look the same, like the same seamstress made everything, which probably will not be happening.
Hopefully not.
Yeah. So you want to try and use the same materials as possible. Shiva and I did a Sailor Moon group last year, and all the Sailor soldiers use the same types of fabrics for their skirts and things like that, so that it looks similar because the costumes are so similar.
Or some detail, like for instance, Sailor Scouts, we all decided we wanted like transparent sleeves as opposed to opaque, or some little detail about the costume where everyone has to kind of look the same so it looks like you planned it. That always helps to bring the group together. For some groups where the costumes aren't similar at all, it's less important, but for school uniforms, Sailor Scouts, it usually looks really nice.
Yeah, but you want to use the same type of materials. You don't want, even if they're different, one person showing up in a completely different material, like a very shiny satin, or a very like hard twill when it's supposed to be somewhere in the middle. So you want people to, be the same. That way it looks really great. Because if you have, also like if you have Full Metal Alchemist, the military, I can't remember exactly.
The uniforms,
yeah, you don't want different shades of blue. It would look so much cooler if everyone got this from the same bolt of fabric, if they could, and had the same color of blue, because that looks really cool.
Well, for something like that, you can go to a store like Joann's and write down the serial number. It doesn't like everyone has to go together and actually physically make them together, but if you can communicate things like where you bought it, what type of fabric it is, what the number is, you can get the same thing going on. And sometimes to kind of tie into that is that if you want to kind of share skills among the group. So if someone's really good at, let's say, resin casting, and they want to make, you all need a certain item and it also look the same, they might volunteer to make that one item for everybody.
Yeah, and that way that person can order the resin in bulk, because sometimes when you order resin, you need to order a bunch of it, and it's just sitting there. That way they can use the product to its best financial, purpose. And that also works with, say, buying a big order of shoes. Like if it's 12 people and you're all ordering the same shoes, contact the distributor and say, hey, I need a dozen of these shoes, or I need a dozen of this type of wig. Can you help me out at all? And some places you will see right up front that there's bulk discount pricing. Sometimes there won't be, but it can help you with the bottom line, because costume making can be expensive.
Or at the very least save on shipping if you're all sending it to one place.
Yeah, and if someone isn't really good at sewing, but they can make like killer props, have them be your prop person, and while they make your prop, sew their skirt for them or style their wig for them. Do what your strength is. And this works really well if everyone's close by, that they can, share items, but it can work if you communicate really well if people are all across the country.
Yeah, you can share techniques online, you can share progress pictures. In some cases, if everyone's making the same item, they put a little video up of how we did it or put up a pattern that everyone can use, and so you're going to get close. I mean, nobody's perfect, we're not professional seamstresses, but you can try to achieve a goal of similarity.
Yeah, and I know it's kind of a small detail, but if you're all wearing skirl uniforms, it helps to make sure your pleats are all going the same way if they're knife pleats. So say, okay, which way are our knife pleats going? Because if one was going one way, if one person's is going the other way than the rest of the group, it looks a little funny. I know you're probably like, who cares? But if you're walking by your group, and I don't know, I tend to notice silly things like that. But if you encourage people to post progress pictures, it also helps people stay on top of the deadline of the convention.
And get inspired. I mean, if people see what other people have done, they get excited. They want to go back to work on theirs. And you also want to kind of help people, if they get behind, give them advice, encourage them, kind of be each other's support system. But at the same time, if something happens, and something always does, you can't really get mad if someone can't do it or they have to drop out.
Real life is more important than cosplay.
That's right, and it always happens. People get a job, things happen, things happen. And you have to kind of accept that. If you are also the person who the thing happens to, you just want to make sure you're really upfront with the group, tell them as soon as you know, just to give them some fair warning.
Yeah, don't let this ruin friendships. That's stupid.
It is really stupid.
Now, what we've really liked from doing these groups in the past is our friends have invited people we don't know, and then we've become friends with them, which is really cool. But if you need a complete group, like if you want an entire group of sailor soldiers, or if you want all of the cast of a certain thing, and it would suck if one person wasn't there, don't rely on a total stranger that you met on cosplay.com or another cosplay website, because you don't know them and they may be totally unreliable. But if you just want a group for fun, then it's totally worth going to a place like that and saying, hey, does anyone have a Chrono Trigger costume and they want to join us?
Right. But otherwise, it's good to have at least somebody in the group know that person and they can vouch for them.
Yeah, and that way you make new friends, and making friends through cosplay is awesome.
Yes, it is.
Time to announce our winner for the Cat Planet Cuties contest. Our winners our entries had to post on our forums what their favorite segment was from the 3.5 seasons of our podcast. And so one winner is Movie Phone Guy, who liked our year-end review in December 2011, and Mega Plushie, and she enjoyed the Kyle Abear interview. And we'll see him next month at PortCon, Maine. And so now, we'll move on to their next segment.
Voicemails!
Alright,
we got a voicemail. That was weird.
Hey guys, it's
Our
a
winner.
guy that likes your show that's Colin, and I have a serious question. What do you do about con plague? You go to a con and you leave really, really sick. It seems to happen a lot. Never been to a big con before, and it happened to me. I usually say something crazy when I call, so here it goes. And now this message in dubstep. Wub wub, wub wub wub. But seriously, I'd love to know about the con plague. Have a good one. Bye.
Con plague.
Yeah,
The bane of all conventions. Got all these people in one closed confined area. Outbreak's
and
gonna
it's
happen.
like the zombie virus.
So it goes one person to the other person. It's very scary stuff. But
I think we can do a whole segment on that.
I think we should.
Yeah,
I think we should.
We'll cover that next month.
All right. From the mailbag.
We got an email. Oh, yeah, it's from
An email. What are those?
Sarah Lavrenchuk.
Lavenchuk. Okay. Well, hi. Well, she writes, "Hi there. My name is Sarah Lavenchuk. I'm 13 and have been an otaku for 5 years. I like hentai, yaoi, art, homestuck, and anime. I love you so much. I left you a voicemail a while back. That cute girl who hit her knee.
Yeah, we played that her second voicemail last month.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
All right. Due to computer troubles, it took me 5 months or so to watch it, and I missed you at Anime Boston. So I wanted to thank you by drawing your old mascot, whose name I don't know.
Kamaboko.
Kamaboko.
Her name is Kamaboko. I don't know if I've ever
I don't
put that
think
out
we've ever
anywhere.
announced that. No.
There you go, everybody. Breaking news.
Breaking news. You can find it at. She sent in her email.
Yeah, so we'll
Yep.
just stick that down here. Actually, we'll put it full screen.
Full screen. Everyone can enjoy it. Yeah, well, and she says thank you, and I hope to see you at another con.
Yeah,
Well,
that'd be
to see
great.
the originator of the artwork.
Yeah, and anybody, if you want to send in artwork, please do so. You can send it to podcast@animecons.tv, or just come up to us at a con and say hello.
But remember, we're on Twitter, Facebook, Google+, iTunes, YouTube, and Foursquare. And you can find links for these at the bottom of our homepages at animecons.com and fancons.com. This June, some of us will be at Anime Next and PortCon Maine, so, like we said, come and say hello. And no matter what convention you're at, call us and tell us how it is. You can leave us a voicemail at 762-ADEQUATE, at 762-233-7828, and we'd love to hear from you.
Food.
My name is Elder Price. I am here to share with you the most amazing book.
It was totally on.